guys, this is Pat and Heidi from Rain Country, and we wanted to talk about the other benefits of chickens. So we all know that chickens are good for eggs, and they're also good for meat, and that's a good thing. But we also wanted to talk about, after the first year of having our chickens, what chickens are, the other benefits of chickens. And our garden has done the best it's done since we've had the garden, due to the fact that we have low to limited slug problems this year out of our main garden, because we allowed the chickens to free range and scratch and peck in the garden from late summer till early spring before we started planting, and then we fenced off the area where the chickens couldn't get into the main garden, and we've benefited quite a bit from that.
I think some of it is that some of the benefits we expected, but some of the things were a little more surprising than I thought. And if you watch my last garden update video, at least it might be my last one from the time that this goes up, and I'll go ahead and post that right up here where I was talking a little bit about slugs, and I'll show. Hush! And I was showing the.
They know we're talking about them.
Yeah, and I was showing that little section in the main garden where I've got the yarrow, and I was talking about that and all the radicchio and the kale and the great things that were coming up, and somebody made a comment under that video about the chickens scratching up dormant seed, and I had started kind of thinking along that line, and when I saw that comment, I'm like, that has to be it. I've got, because I had kale, and because I hardly had any kale or radicchio come up last year, and it should have come up everywhere, and yet we let them chickens free range all through there for, gosh, it would have been maybe as much as 8 months straight, and I think they really dug up that dormant seed that had been lying under there and under the soil, and then they were fertilizing it along the way, and just getting it up to where it needed to be, and now I've got radicchio and kale. I'm gonna have it coming out my ears, and I'm so glad, because that's what I want. Love that radicchio and kale.
So one of those benefits would be a little bit of tilling action going on.
Right.
A little aeration, mixing up the soil.
Now let me go back a little bit from when we first got the chickens. A lot of people were saying, well, chickens aren't very good for slug patrol. You got to have ducks. Well, we don't have the space for ducks. In our limited area, we have to have things that are going to be multi-purpose, and we just don't have a space for ducks. They don't give us enough eggs, or enough of the kind of eggs that we would want, though I know their eggs are great for baking and making noodles. It's not worth it for us to sacrifice the space for ducks. So I got online and started looking up chickens and slugs, and found some people who started training their chickens to eat slugs at a young age by cutting giving them little teeny tiny slugs, or cutting them up real small. So that's what I started doing, and it worked. And I think I said in the last time I was talking about the chicken. Hey! I think I said the last time that I was talking about the chickens eating the slugs that they didn't really like the big ones. Well, they are eating the big ones. They'll kind of peck at them a little bit, but if another chicken comes up and shows interest in it, they'll just gobble it right down, because they're not going to share. So it's been...
They might choke on the slug.
Beforehand, no. But anyway, so it was very clear by the fact that some of the favorite things that slugs like are sunflowers when they first start coming out of the ground, beans, the anise hyssop. They would not even give that a chance to grow at all, and all of these things have been growing untouched, and so it's been really great to finally see this stuff be able to grow and get to a decent size. It was a constant battle with the slugs, and now it's like I don't have to worry about it. At least not back here.
Right. Front yard's a little different story.
Yeah, front yard's a little different because we didn't let the chickens free range out there. So you can see a huge difference in the gardens out front as far as the slug problem, and the garden's back here.
Now we've used to separate the main garden from the availability of the chickens to gain access, is we got one of those net fences that just the little plastic stakes just pushing the ground, and we tried that first. I think it's what, 36 inches tall, and we wanted to try that first, but it also has a electric portion of that to where you can hook it to electricity,
Yeah, if you feel
and
you need
shock them if they have a tendency to try to get in. But they
It might be good for those people who have rabbit problems. I know some people were asking what to do about the rabbits that are coming in.
or
That
different
may be a
types
good
of
option.
predators that come in depending on where you live. It has the ability to be able to hook up an electric
Right.
charge to it, to make an electric fence. I think it's a goat and poultry fence is what they call it. It's
Yeah.
just a fence you roll up. It's just a little simple deal.
And I
like-
show it in one of my garden update videos.
Right.
I'll go ahead and link to that one right up here, but keep in mind the garden looks a lot different now than it did there.
But yeah, so we want to possibly get another one of those little fences, perhaps put it around in the front yard and let the chickens free range in there this fall,
Right.
so they can kind of
Yeah.
clean and scratch and peck and
Yep.
rototill, so,
Yeah, so I think that'll help
and
out.
fertilize.
Right. So, the thing is, I mean, like Patrick said earlier, we know that chickens are good for giving us eggs, and that was the number one reason we got the chickens. But along the way, I'd been kind of learning a little bit about, well, you got their manure, and that's good for your garden, and a couple other things like that. And I'm like, well, yeah, I think chickens are going to be really great. And it wasn't until this spring, seeing the stuff starting to grow, that I really, really start seeing the benefits of having chickens. I mean, that is one animal that truly earns its keep. And so if we're going to look at this as maybe a preparedness minded, or even people that are living in a small space like us, I know quail's good because they don't take up very much room, but I don't think you're going to have as many multi-purpose benefits from your quail as you are chickens. So for us, from our own observations of what we see here and what we see other people doing with ducks and other farm type animals, especially fowl, chickens I think are going to be the best all around for preparedness, because they can eat so many things. You can feed them that comfrey that's going to take over. You can feed them grass clippings. You let them free range, and they'll eat a lot of bugs and slugs, and they'll keep your pest problem down. They will even eat mice. So if you have a mouse problem, there's something too. So consider that. Chickens will eat mice.
Well, the other thing on the whole chicken, as far as for preparedness, depending on where you're at in that preparedness, how far you want to go, chickens are a noisy bird. So quail, there's the trade-off with the quail
right.
and the chickens, because quail are quieter.
Yeah,
They're
so if you're trying to keep them on
easier
down
to
low.
contain, and
Yeah, if you don't want everyone to know that you have meat birds on hand, quail's the way to go. And especially if you live in a small place and you don't want the whole neighborhood to know you've got these birds, quail is a good option. For us though, the neighbors don't mind the chickens, and I've talked to several of them, and they don't seem to care whether or not we get a rooster, so that could still happen down the road. But I see so many great benefits of the chickens just really paying off, and being able to shovel out their coop. People go, well, it's a lot of work it's really not that much work keeping up on chickens. And, shoveling out their coop, if you do more of a deep litter method, you just got to shovel it out a couple times a year, and then you can use it on your garden. So nothing's going to waste. So even if you had to buy the straw or whatever bedding that you want to put down in there, in the chicken coop, you let them work on that for 6 months in there, and lay their fertilizer down in there and mix it all together, and then you can lay that on your garden. That's what we put on our corn and our potatoes out back, the farthest away patch of potatoes, and I can tell it's really, the corn and the potatoes are really liking that. Okay, so we talked about the fertilizing and we talked about the rototilling. Oh, there was one more thing on the rototilling I wanted to say is that creeping buttercup is something that is a real problem here. And I'm battling it quite a bit and all over the place. And last year I was constantly having to dig it up out of the main garden. Well, the chickens, letting them in there for that 8 months straight or whatever it was, 8, 9 months, they dug up most of that buttercup. They dug it up, and I don't know if they ate it or what, but it was gone. And there's only been a few little chunks that I've had to dig up by hand that were actually really easy to pull out because the chickens had, you know, loosened up the soil quite a bit. And the only bad thing is that they did also stir up a lot of grass seed and plantain seed. And we know plantain is a great medicinal thing to have on hand, but it can also take over and crowd out a lot of vegetables. So I try to only keep a couple of plantains, and I've got baby plantain coming up everywhere that I have to keep pulling up. But other than that, I mean, the trade-off was I'm also getting all the kale and radicchio and the anise hyssop coming back, and it's really been a true blessing. Mm-hmm. And then, of course, as many chicken owners will already know, is you have the entertainment factor. Yeah, I mean, they just keep us entertained. They're so funny. They all have their own personalities, and you know, I have a couple that are super sweet. I have one that's just mean as all get out, and they're all, for those of you who are new, they're all buff Orpingtons that are supposed to be some of the sweetest birds, but not all of them are sweet.
Oh, you're always going to have a dominant bird.
Yeah, so Broomhilda, she's kind of mean. She's gotten to where now I even come close to her at all, and she starts to fluff out her feathers and make that sound. But she gives us eggs. She's a good layer, and as all of them, except for I think one that I can't figure out which one it is. But I think there's one that's not such a good layer. So that will probably be the first one that gets turned into a meat bird. So, and that's going to be a tough thing. But we can't afford the space or the feed to keep chickens around that aren't going to produce as well, so we'll have to be rotating through. And I know that they get tough after 2-3 years, but you can pressure can them, or you can turn them into a soup, and that's always an option. And so that's,
or eat them tough.
I mean, it's still meat, and it's still, so again, coming back to the prepper mindedness of it, you've got some chickens that are going to do some work for you in the garden, cleaning things up, tilling things up, fertilizing, and giving you eggs. And then when they get to that point where they're too old to do all that stuff, now they're going to become your dinner. And then you just keep making new chicks. So if you got a rooster, which we don't yet, if you have a rooster, then you can keep... Yep, you can keep renewing your chickens that way. So until we get a rooster, we'll just have to settle for either getting them from the local nursery or from friends.
Or borrow a rooster from somebody.
Or borrow a rooster. That was another thing. We had somebody offer that. A couple of different people offer that one. Let us borrow a rooster so we can, get some chicks going here.
So anyway, that's just an update on the chickens from past year. Hope that helps people to decide whether or not they want to have chickens or other type of meat birds. We thank you for watching. Take care.
And God bless. I swear, shoot. I think it's just because we're out here talking, and so she feels that she's got to participate.
I don't know.